All right, hello y'all. Hope you're all doing well. This is RJ and special guest today. Some of you obviously recognize Vinny, cousin Vinny.
Yes, sir.
Thrilled to see him here. And if you followed the previous video, you'll recognize this place because we just had a wonderful ceremony here just a little bit ago, right? Where we had a memorial type service, a ceremony, a meeting, great speakers, which included Vinny here was the keynote speaker. They asked me to speak as well. A lot of good folks, good food, merchandise. It was a wonderful experience. So we are here in Georgetown, Delaware. And you can see in the background here, this beautiful memorial made possible by the Delaware Grays and also the UDC chapter.
Yep, that's Caleb Ross, United Daughters of the Confederacy, and the Delaware Grays SCV. Mr. Jeff, Miss Laura, RJ, myself, and Ms. Deb were all keynote speakers, and we had a great time honoring our heritage and honoring the men in gray that served Delaware, as well as, y'all look at the back of the stones, because this memorial, everything, the flags, the stones, the cenotaph, this is all one big memorial, and it's just so beautiful. It's not overly huge, but it's grand enough that there's so many components of it. And it honors not just the soldiers, but the civilians, the civilian POWs, or those who were working at the local office trying to fight for the South, more or less.
Thank you. And I got closer so we can hear your voice.
Perfect.
With this one. But
look at that. State flag of Delaware and the battle flag.
Yes. Delaware and the battle flag there, and I was explaining earlier, we know it's not, it's a variation of the battle flag. We can say call it the Naval Jack, Rebel flag.
Army of Tennessee.
Exactly. But I did a live video earlier and went around, and on all four sides are the names of those folks from Delaware. What they estimate around 2,000 around. They say between 300 to 3,000, but most likely 2,000 from people from Delaware who left the state and to join the South.
That's right. They and right the fields down there. So where the beautiful museum is and the monument, there's a field across the road. And what makes this monument so historic is not only does it honor the Delawareans that fought, we keep adding names to this. So this monument is growing. Most monuments, they have the names on there and that's it. Nothing else is added for years and years. Every year at this memorial service, another name is added to that, block over there. Down that road on that field, during the war between the states, there was a group of men from Delaware that were more or less training and fighting to want to go to the South. Lincoln sent federal troops down, said break it up, knock it off. They all got together and they found a way to Virginia. Delaware was a very divided state. So the Caleb Ross, for example, Caleb Ross is the son of Governor Ross at that time during the war between the states. Governor Ross is already not liked. He's very Southern sympathetic. His plantation is still around in Delaware today. It's a museum. And he says, you know what? I'm going to hightail it out of here so I don't get arrested. He takes a ship and he ends up going to England where he remains. His son, during the war, escapes to Virginia and dies before he sees combat of some bacterial disease, I think from like fleas or something. So he died fairly young, his son. It was sad. And the Ross family, again, very Southern sympathetic, more than just Copperheads. The son enlisted in the Confederate Army. And that's why the chapter is named after him, to honor his legacy. And the Delaware Grays has been around for a few years. The Caleb Ross was chartered in 2003, so they're just a little over 20 years old. And still here honoring our heritage, and we're proud of it. And we were so united today. We came together over good food, over prayer. RJ gave an amazing presentation. He is an incredible speaker. And of course, we're super grateful to have RJ because he goes out there to document our history. He's doing the unthinkable. How many authors just write about it? They write about history and that's it. RJ lives the cause. He goes out there. He does the field work that too few are willing to do. And he not only documents the past, because some of these monuments are no longer in existence for future generations to learn from what happened, but he documents the new monuments that go up as well as where they are now. And it's just invaluable because it's the real history. And y'all watching him are learning your history and it makes it fun. It's better than that nonsense on National Geographic.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say, because I usually don't talk. I never do talk about myself. And but it was wonderful when I walked in this room and saw, hey, Vinny there. That's awesome.
RJ. Yes.
And by chance, we were just talking yesterday.
That's right.
We were talking about the new executive order that just came through. We just found out it was signed late last Thursday night, and the ramifications of that. And, you know, like you said, great today, great representation. Jeff was there, leader of the Delaware Grays, wonderful man. See him around different places. The entire camp, very wonderful people. Caleb Ross, UDC leader, president, was here as well. A lot of other good folks. And the president of this Georgetown Historical Society right here that you see in the background.
That's right.
We just got a personal tour. They were very kind to pass a tour along, which include this building over here. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But yeah, great. And I love that, just particularly see you here, because as you know, many of you know Vinny. He had those awesome videos on Monuments Across Dixie. We were both, you know, part of Monuments Across Dixie admins. Now, we both haven't contributed specifically to Monuments Across Dixie for a while, but Vinny had all those videos. And, you know, Facebook came out with a new policy that they were going to limit the live videos, and they were going to erase them after 30 days. And so Vinny, I just asked him, he's saved those videos so he can watch those, because they are very time critical. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to someone who understands the pulse, what's going on, his connections, more so, Vinny, far more than me, he has the connection, knows the internal workings between the SCV and the UDC, and an incredible advocate for the South. Always been a great example to everybody. Vinny, as you know, is the, well, maybe you don't know, the leader of the New Jersey Flaggers, right? And you can talk about that. He's the one who would go up there to that, for example, that Confederate memorial that's up in New York, right? And pay respects up there and make sure it's flagged, make sure to give proper honor and respect out there. And he deals with a lot of, you know, flack. People, there's a lot of, I would say, leftists, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
My perspective, the Mayoist, who the council culture woke, who don't like to see that, right? They don't like to see these flags that you see flying in the background, which I remind everybody, to me and to Vinny, as American a flag as you can get.
That's right.
Right? Representing the citizen soldiers who answered the call and did their duty to serve and protect and defend their homes and their families and their homeland, right? Doing what their forefathers had done. Represent us often.
Yeah, RJ's absolutely correct. And I always tell people, because my favorite thing is, it's the leftists also very bad outright. We go flagging up in New Jersey because New Jersey has a lot of ties to the Confederacy. There's, you know, buildings, street names, towns, monuments. We got 4 of them, a lot of Confederate graves. And I told my friend, you know, some might know Frankie, the Relentless Patriot. He's a member of Jersey Flaggers, member of the New Jersey SCV. Our New Jersey Flaggers was created for the sole purpose to unite people. SCV and UDC and OCR, they're all wonderful groups. What we did doing the Flaggers, we're an LLC. We were able to do something that a 501c3 can't. We can get involved politically, and we can get more active and not have to worry the same that a 501c3 would. So we had, you know, you have UDC members, OCR members, SCV members, and people who are not even affiliated with that, who joined the New Jersey Flaggers. We get together for obviously always Christ first, then family, then heritage. We support other organizations out there like the Virginia Flaggers, the SCV, the UDC. We donate to them. We buy stuff from them. I encourage my members as private citizens, you know, join those groups, get involved, do what you can do. And flagging is a big thing because it's not just standing out there, which we do. Confederate Flag Day. We were out in Morristown, New Jersey. That city in New Jersey has so many Confederate ties. And we were flagging outside the Washington headquarters and the Washington Monument because guess what, y'all? George Washington's family, though he never had direct children, his stepchildren and all that, had ties to the Confederacy. And he's a Virginian first, that idea of being a statesman. I've had people that we'd be out there flagging, they get this close to my face, hollering, cussing, yelling. And I remember I just said, God bless you. I told the guy, God bless you. And he turns around and said, there ain't no God. I said, well, I pray for you, sir. It's really sad to live your life like that. And like RJ said, we have a monument in New York, upstate New York. This monument came under attack in 2018. And it was a group of people that like-minded came together and we saved it. We prevented it from being destroyed, from being sandblasted, from being taken out of a cemetery. This was at a time when the whole thing was, remember, it was, oh, take your flags down, put them at a museum. This is a museum right here. Well, guess what? The Maoists, that's not okay. They don't want this stuff at a museum no more. They don't want it to exist. That was just their way of psychologically shaping us to slowly get rid of our heritage. And I said, you know what? We got to stop hiding behind flags. The first national flag matters. The Bonnie Blue matters as much as the battle flag, the second and third national, which also include the battle flag. So every year I bring a variety of Confederate flags, national battle flag, and I put a flag at all of those graves, about 55, at that circle, at that cemetery on Hastings-on-Hudson. And we do a memorial service. We sing Dixie. We sang Maryland, My Maryland one year. We sang I'm a Good Old Rebel. We are truly unreconstructed, and we're proud of our Southern roots. And we're showing them that we're, guess what? You're offended? Too darn bad. Look the other way. A lot of things in life I don't like, but guess what? Free speech is all speech. And that's what matters. People were saying, oh, maybe you should get rid of the flag. Nope, that's part of that monument. The more that we put our foot down and say, no, I'm not bending in. This is my heritage. I stand behind that 110%. The quicker this nonsense ends. Because ever since we've been doing that in New York, we haven't heard one peep for them to want to remove that monument in that cemetery. Every year we use that monument, we have standing. And I tell people, you got memorials, use them. Go there, leave flags, leave flowers. Obviously, a Confederate monument, only flags that are appropriate, state flag, CSA battle, or CSA national flags. At New Jersey Flaggers, our motto was benevolent, historical, educational, and activism. And the activism part is what sets it apart from other groups, because we would lobby. We would go out there. We would explain, this is why we need to do something. This is why we got to advocate for, better protection laws or something. And doing so, I met people. I met a gentleman who was from Greenville, South Carolina, just by sitting out there at my flag. Hey, do you know about the SCV? Do you want to get involved? And his response, he's 77 years young, was, it warms my heart to see that somebody all the way in New Jersey is proud of their roots. Thank you, young fella, for keeping our history alive. I had two other people approach me at the bar. I had my hat on, battle flag sweatshirt. Young lady, 23, she goes, I'm from Virginia, and you just gave me hope for New Jersey. Thank you for keeping our history alive. Nothing but positive. Only one time I got something negative was some socially awkward, probably lives in his mama's basement, guy that was in his early 20s with big glasses, big head, and he was going like this to me. And I said, oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton old time. And I sang Dixie, and he just stormed off. And that's, you got to handle the haters, y'all. Educate them. Sing songs, patriotic songs. Say bless you. Bless your heart. That's all you got to say to them. And what I loved about today is you saw that people came from all over Delaware, New Jersey. We had people in the past come from Georgia, New York, and we all brought some food. We had raffle items. This is my go-to every year, and we need more people from Delaware. Come on out. Come on out from Maryland. Enjoy our history and heritage and learn something, because every one of those names gets honored, and every one of those names has a story behind them.
Thank you. That's why we need to hear more from you, Vinny. And that's why I wish we had a chance to go tour America. So maybe someday. Someday, hopefully in the near future, when my PhD is over and I'll have my office, I'll have the chance to be more independent. All I can say, no spoilers, that RJ and I will be working together in the near future together. We're going to be a dynamic duo because we are good at what we do and we're proud of our roots. Love it. And so last time I saw you was over there in Lexington, Virginia, yes, right? And I tell you what, that was, I think, my 5th year in a row there. And yes, what a wonderful occasion that was. Once again, that was for Lee Jackson Day. That was a state holiday there for a long time. And the Mayoist governor, Northam, decided to remove it. He says, well, to us, it doesn't make a difference. It's still Lee Jackson Day. They're still American heroes. That's right. They still need to be remembered. They were good, honorable men. And so for us, it doesn't matter. I don't care what that dude has to say. So we continued to, we had a great symposia. We had a lot of great speakers. I love that march through town. And then there was a flagging that you're spoken of. And that's what made me think of this. because I saw you out there flagging right out there at Washington Lee, right on the edge there.
Right there.
And then later on, right off the main street. And I loved being able to be out hanging out there and flagging with you for that time. I wish we could do that more often.
Me too.
And overall, yeah, like you mentioned, those are interesting stories of folks who get all uptight, but overwhelmingly very positive, right? Lexington, we know, is very woke. You know, the leadership, like in a lot of places, they don't really care about the population has to say. And yeah, they were trying to rename streets there. Right. In fact, in Lexington, they even renamed New Market. Can you believe it? And for those of you out there, it's like, why would Lexington and those mayors want to rename a street called New Market? Well, because after all, that was one of the most famous, popular battles, deadliest battles that took place in Shenandoah Valley. Oh, it's because even though the Confederacy is outnumbered, they won that battle. They don't like any reminders of the Confederacy's success, which happens all the time. That's one of the reasons why they renamed buildings and the ship called Chancellorsville, because even though the South was outnumbered over 2-1, they won that one. They don't want any reminders, even the most important battles in America's history that took place. But being out there, I say that because they did that. Yeah, and those mayors out there, they even renamed Stonewall Cemetery. We still will forever. That's why we call it Dixie forever. You know, it shouldn't change what they think. It's still Stonewall Cemetery to us, where Stonewall Jackson and many other important folks are buried. And to us, it hasn't changed the fact. But being out there, overwhelmingly very supportive folks out there. And when you talk about flagging, that's why I keep, even though I've got a relatively small car, it's coming up on 200,000 miles, still making the rounds. I'm looking at the damage on the side of my car because I hit a deer on the way to Sharpsburg Battlefield last year. But I usually keep at least 100 18-inch stick flags in the back to leave that reminders around wherever I go. So always looking for those Confederate cemeteries. So some of those folks who will follow Dixie forever saw I just was at a Confederate cemetery. I just found that by total chance. And I was going down the road. I always check out those historical markers, and I saw Confederate cemetery. And I went down there, saw this Confederate cemetery. It was beautiful, and there was a battle flag out there. And a lot of you were upset because the battle flag was over the. See, they had the battle flag, and then the First National underneath it. And a lot of you were upset that it was, and I can understand that point. But whatever the case,
at least it's up. See, hey, at least it's a battle flag and a First National. It's the proper flags. The order might be off. It happens. And that's part of the problem too. People don't always teach the proper use of the Confederate flag, how national first, then battle flag, and then all those little nuances. But at least someone tried. That's what matters.
Exactly. So you're traveling around, want to leave those flags around. And so I try to find a good discount for those. And so I always leave those around. I encourage you to do the same thing. That's those of you out there listening, to keep flags in there. If you see a Confederate gravesite, leave it there. You never know what you'll find. Those might be there until they fall off, they fragment to pieces from the weather. That's possible. I've seen that happen. I left a flag at some cemeteries, and I returned there about 4 or 5 years later, and they're very, very faded and torn, but they were still there. Other times, yeah, maybe they're gone in a matter of a short time. But I'll do the same thing with county Confederate memorials in front of county courthouses, wherever it's at. And so what are they going to do if I leave a Confederate flag at a Confederate memorial right there on the county courthouse grounds? I've done that so many times. Never been an issue, never been a problem. Nobody's harassed me. Now I know they're looking. There's been times, in fact, not too long ago, I put a Confederate flag down by a Confederate memorial in front of the courthouse. And I went into the museum, and I went back out 20 minutes later. It was already gone after 20 minutes. But I've also put them out in front of county courthouses where I've returned a week later and they're still there and beyond, right? I saw you put one out in Orange County, right? I remember I went by there later. It was still there. Went by later. It was still there. And so I'm encouraging everybody. Leave. That's Confederate memorial flags are important for everybody to see.
Yes.
They're part of our life. They're part of Americana. That's part of America. If you don't, and we always hear that thing, if you don't like America, leave it. So yes, Confederate history is American history, a very important part of American history.
And those are American flags, because y'all, another big thing, they call it the woke right, as we see it all the time. I was at one of the rallies, and I've been standing my ground for years. We had people that were quote Republicans, but they were, you know, Yankee, Lincoln era Republicans. And they said, you can't have that flag here. Well, guess what? It's a public space, my freedom of speech. I'm allowed to have whatever flag I want to have. And we argued about it. And when they said American flags only, well, guess what? That's an American flag because it was the CSA, Confederate States of America.
About American as a flag as you can get.
100%.
In fact, it's far easier to argue that the Confederate battle flag is far more American than the federal flag was at the time.
Absolutely.
Right? Because as you look at those charts, the vast majority of those folks who were fighting the Confederate flag were multi-generational Americans that had lived here for a long, long time. A lot of those Federals were fresh off the boat, mercenaries basically.
From Germany.
I have this one book that on statistics, and it shows that most of those northern states most of those were fresh folks, that have just recently arrived. I don't think they really understood the concept. Their family weren't around during the founding of this nation. They don't really have the concept of what Southerners had, and it's far easier to argue that the Confederate battle flag is far more of an American flag than the federal U.S. flag is. So it's no surprise that when I made a brief mention in there that it's no surprise that many of the descendants of our founding fathers and close relatives support the Confederacy. And so, as mentioned before, you know, George Washington, for example, his closest relatives, pretty much every single able-bodied man who served, who was able to served in the Confederacy. It's no surprise, right? He's a Virginian after all. I've traveled through Charlestown and where the big Washington graveyard is, and every single one of those able-bodied relatives of George Washington were Confederate veterans. Many of them died, and many of them were brutally handled by the Union soldiers when they came through there. Union were brutal to George Washington's relatives. You can read that as you go around Charlestown, West Virginia area, which used to be Virginia, of course. They talked about how Union soldiers came through there and looted and plundered and destroyed that area and just ransacked that area. And many of George Washington's closest relatives, his great-grandnephews, died. And I've been to multiple cemeteries where you can find the grave sites, many of George Washington's relatives who fought with the Confederacy that died or killed during the war. And not just that, but of course, for example, one of my other favorite founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, right? Thomas Jefferson. Someone, if next time, there's a reason why the gravesite right next to Thomas Jefferson at Monticello was a Confederate general. And not just any Confederate general, but the Secretary of War for the Confederacy. Because he grew up with Thomas Jefferson. He was born and raised at Monticello. And so it's no surprise the gravesite right next to Thomas Jefferson is a Confederate general, the Secretary of War for the Confederacy. And it's also no surprise for those like my other favorite founding father, George Mason, the father of our Bill of Rights, that his grandson was the leader of the U.S. Senate at the time, and he became an ambassador for the Confederacy, and he was captured. And you can read about what the Union soldiers did to his house. They completely destroyed his house. And same with Patrick Henry, same with Francis Scott Key. And I just ran across an article not too long ago that says every single one of Francis Scott Key's descendants supported the Confederacy, because to them it was the exact same principles. And I think that's why, going back here, for those of you who's joining us, we're here in Georgetown, Delaware. And some people might wonder, well, what in the world is a Confederate memorial doing here in Delaware? Because after all, Delaware, we had a discussion about this earlier, was divided, right? It was pretty close. A couple people could have made the difference. Delaware may have joined the Confederacy if it wasn't just for a couple people. But it's no surprise that as many, a couple thousand perhaps, they're saying, like I said, between 300 to 3,000, or likely about 2,000, Delawareans recognize the constitutional validity of the South, recognizing that it's a mockery to have fought for American independence and not allow independence again. What a mockery to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and everything we hold dear as Americans to not allow people their full free agency.
That's right. They knew in Delaware, and in Delaware there's skirmishes too. People forget that, and the barn talked more about that. There was two taverns, more or less hotels. One was Union, one was Southern sympathizers, more or less Confederates. They had an actual brawl, and this was happening in several places in Delaware. There's a town in Delaware where another brawl happened. It was the citizens, more or less what happened similar to Baltimore. I don't think the mural is still there anymore depicting it, but it was written history that this was happening. The war tore apart families in Delaware.